My name is Kamini. I work as a software engineer at Amazon. I met Uma at Iowa State. We went to school together. A little bit about me is I'm originally from India, but I've grown up all over the world in Malaysia and Qatar. It's been really fun, and I'm really excited to share my experiences as a software engineer with all of you.
My name is Uma. I am currently a software engineer at Microsoft. As Kamini said, I met her while we were in college, Iowa State University to be specific. Go Cyclones. We met during a year before senior design, but we also we saw ourselves on campus, and I'm also here to share my experience as a software engineer, also from a perspective of being international students as well. Yeah. We're going to be answering some questions from our perspective, from our tech perspective, coming from different parts, and how we got our jobs and what we like about our current jobs, and advice for people who want to do software engineering, and also college students as well as international students as well. So let's start with the first question. The first question is, what got you into tech or software and computer science as a whole? Kamini, do you want to go first?
Sure. So for me, I don't have like a super crazy story. I took a Java class before going to college. My dad was like, oh, hey, why don't you try this? And I liked it. And I always thought computer science was very interesting, but I always thought you had to be like some sort of genius or something to get into computer science. Like the way the world portrays software engineers, they look so smart. So I never applied. But I applied to be a chemical engineer at Iowa State, and I got in, and I spoke to my advisor about it, and it was like pretty easy to switch. So I became a software engineering major, and I would say for the first year, it was pretty rough, meeting people who had been doing this for years, and I was here I'm just learning how to code, right? It took me, I would say, going to the Grace Hopper conference to really figure out that this was what I wanted to do, and meet people who were doing groundbreaking things in the industry to really get inspired and see how awesome this field is. So that's my intro story.
That's awesome. I have something similar where I actually started off in aerospace engineering, and it was good, but honestly, it was kind of hard to get any internships. I was looking for internships, going to career fairs, and it was just like 2 or 3 companies there, and a lot of them would have really long lines, and I would, go talk to someone, and they would spot the accent and say, "Boom, are you an international student?" And yes, I say yes, and they're like, "We don't even want to touch you guys with a 10 foot long stick." And that process went on for like 2 years, and in addition to that, there was also, I kind of lost interest in aerospace engineering. After you learn the basics of the field, which is just lift and drag, then it's like the main design of planes haven't changed in the last 100 years, ever since it started. Yes, they go faster, more fuel efficient, but the basic idea is still the same behind that. And I wanted to find something that continually evolves, something where basically the number of things I can do is really, really vast. And thought about mechanical engineering, thought about computer science, but ended up in software engineering because I wanted to be an engineer. And that's basically how I got into software engineering.
Yeah, I feel like it's a really good thing you switched, because I feel like this is something you're very passionate about, which you can definitely see.
There's so many things you can do with software, and that's the beauty of it, in my opinion. Some people may not like that, but I think that's basically what I love the most about it.
Me too. I feel like literally every single industry needs a software engineer today. If you want to be in fashion, if you want to be in finance, if you want to be in plain old tech, it's so interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Let's jump into the next question. What kept you going? It's no secret that software engineering is hard. So when things got really challenging, what kept you going in software engineering?
Okay, am I going first, or is it you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go first.
Okay. So for me, I would say I touched on it earlier, how there are a lot of people who come into these degrees like computer science and software engineering who have years of experience in like this field. Like they probably started coding like 4 or 5 years ago. They'll come and tell you that they built their own app, and it's incredibly intimidating because when you're first starting out, like you can barely code, so you're instantly comparing yourself to someone who's already built an app, and you've no idea like how this even works, and you think it's insanely complicated. And I think for the first year, I dealt with a lot of lack of confidence because of that. It took meeting people and hearing people say they felt similar to me, and finding my own community to really figure out that it's okay to feel that way and you're not alone, and that doesn't mean, you know, that you don't know what you're doing. I think a lot of people feel that way. So a strong community really helped me a lot. Plus just like internships as well. I think internships really like sealed the deal because I really got to like actually get, you know, dip my feet in the water and be like, do I actually like this? Like, is this interesting? And I did really like it, and I found like that it was something that I could see myself doing.
Definitely, I completely agree with you on that front because for me it was something similar, right? I went into it with one mindset. If other people have done it before, then I can do it. I don't care whether I was raised where, you know, they always ask you, does this person have two brains? Does this person have three brains? Why is he doing it and you can't do it? And that mindset has fueled me to do a lot of things that I'm doing. It's like when I went into tech, I had a friend who came in before me, but he was in software engineering. So when I switched, I had to start from being a freshman again, but he was a sophomore, and I went to ask him with a lot of problems, with a lot of questions, and he helped me, right? Like, oh, how do I do this? What am I doing? So having close friends definitely helped me. But for me, it was more of the mindset and surrounding myself with people who just wanted to win, right? People who you know, at the end of the day, they're not settling for a C on that grade or settling for a D on that grade. The people who you surround yourself with, your inner circle. For me, that was NSB, National Society of Black Engineers. They would have meetings every Thursday, would have study sessions. There were higher classmen there, you know, just people trying to keep you accountable for, have you done that homework? Have you done this project? What do you think about this? Or what did you get in this grade? You know, answering questions like that with your peers definitely kept me going.
Yeah, that's like there's that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah,
So I feel like that's so true. I feel like freshman year, I feel like I hung out with people that probably weren't as motivated like that, and that probably contributed to, you know, some of those maybe like lack of confidence, because I didn't have those friends that were really like reaching for stuff and, you know, having all these great goals. But once I found that, I think it helped me a lot, like you said.
Yep. I gave when we were talking about this earlier, I gave a story about a friend. I won't mention his name, but we were sitting down at the library and studying, and he had gotten calls from Tesla and a bunch of other companies the day after the career fair, and they were kind of basically not arguing, they were toggling for him. One company was saying, "Oh yeah, we want you." They were fighting for him, and that day I sat down with him and I was like, "Hey, what do you have that these people want? Teach me, talk to me, honestly." And because it was a big thing for me. Yeah, what's your secret? And he basically showed me the rope. So start here, go talk to this professor, get this experience from here, talk to this recruiter, look for what you're looking for. From next, do this, do this, do this. And he showed me the ropes. And he wasn't the only one who showed me. You know, there were a bunch of other people that I reached out to. And I also wasn't the only one he showed. So he was kind of mentoring me and a few other people. And so we eventually kind of became each other's best friends and each other's accountability partners, where we asked ourselves questions. So that definitely kept me going. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I feel like that's so nice. I feel like there's so much information out there that I just didn't know existed. Like, look at your YouTube, for example. Like, before I went to college, I wouldn't have even thought of looking for something like this. And that's something I wish I knew about, because you could have learned about all this stuff earlier. So, something I really want to hear about from you is how you started tackling the job market, like, you know, before you had a job, when you had some experience, and then also like when you were looking full time and stuff like that.
As an international student, there's no ask anyone. The job market is, I want to say, twice as hard for us because of our, you know, citizenship status. They ask that question on the form. I filled out applications where I asked that question and I couldn't even go to the next page. Like, I filled out some where I asked it, and even before right after I click submit, the email that people usually get to tell them thank you for applying is, no, we can't hire you for me, you know. And the first thing that I did was understand that I'm going to have to work twice as hard. Whether I like it or not, I'm going to have to prove a point. Someone who is from here, someone who was born here, someone who doesn't have to jump that hurdle that I have to go through may find it easier for them because the company doesn't have to spend extra to keep them. For me, I know, before a company even looks at me, first of all, I have to break that barrier of being 1 in 1,000 resumes that gets picked to the company. Then the next step is then to show the company that you're worth it for them to spend that extra money on you. So just having that in my mindset, knowing this won't be easy, that was the first step. The next step was putting myself in a position where the companies came to me. So I started by setting up my LinkedIn, setting up a beautiful resume, just making sure that there was no question mark on my profile. Like, oh, what about this? What about this? Nah, I worked on several projects, in class and out of class projects that I put on a resume. When I went to career fairs, I had my projects on my phone, and I would show the recruiter, hey, this is an app I built, and they would play with it and they would ask me questions about it. When it was a web application, some of them had computers right there by their booth. I would type the website and show them. And so I basically set myself up in a way where I know I'm a good candidate. You understand what I mean? So it's like, I know I'm good enough. The ball is in your court to play. And if that doesn't work out, then that's it. I also used LinkedIn a lot, applied to a lot of jobs, a lot, not just at Iowa State Career Fair, but I went to NESB as well, met recruiters who told me pop and straight. I asked them question, how did I present myself today? What can I do better? And there were people who were willing to tell me, hey man, this GPA has to go just a little bit higher. Or I asked you this question and because you answered it this way, I don't think you're a good candidate. Next time, think about it this way before you answer it. So I got a lot of feedback from my friends. I got a lot of feedback from recruiters, and using that information, that was basically how I started tackling the job market. I also didn't look for the bigger fishes. I started with the smaller companies, doing research on campus, and essentially anybody who's hiring you just wants to know that you can do what they hire you for. So it's your way, it's up to you to show them that you can do it. It could be portfolios, it could be smaller jobs you've worked on campus. You just take one person to give you a chance.
Yeah, I feel like you covered most of it. Like, that was like most of the stuff I was gonna say, but I completely relate to you. I feel like as an international student, you cannot have this expectation that, you are going to get a job. You have to work 10 times harder to do it. And you have to be okay with that because that's just, how it is. But like, I feel like LinkedIn, like you said, super important. A lot of people underestimate it. I feel like a lot of people, when they would be on LinkedIn, they'd be like, oh, like, why are you being on LinkedIn? Like, what are you doing? But they didn't understand like the importance of it, how important it is to connect with people. I think before I got my first internship, I would say that was the hardest, when you don't have experience. How do you stand out? How do you catch people's eyes? And the one thing I noticed was passion goes a long way. A lot of people are technically apt, but not a lot of people might be passionate about a company's business. And you can show them that passion in multiple ways. You can show that. Are you okay?
Sorry, I went to you so bad. I'll cut it right out. Yeah, keep going. You're talking about passion. Yeah, I completely agree with you. You have to show that you're not just applying to 100 companies, right? Pick that one company you like. You may be applying to 100 and seeing which one sticks, but show a little bit of effort, right, for each one.
Yeah, I feel like for me, what worked for me to get my first internship was I worked on personal projects like you said, but I interned with Nordstrom, which is a fashion company for those that don't know, for my first internship. And what I think sticked with them was I made a website to show people like different ways they could buy things online. And, that showed like, okay, I have a passion for tech, but I also have this passion for like fashion and retail. And I think that's what caught their eye as well with like, leadership experiences, like get involved on campus, go join a club, show people that you are working on skills other than your technical skills so that you have more to offer. And once you like get that first job, then it's like a lot easier for you. You have experience that people are looking for. And that's when, all that stuff like networking and continuously like working on your portfolio really comes in as well. So definitely use LinkedIn. I got recruited through LinkedIn, so I'm a big advocate of LinkedIn. So be active on it.
I think I mentioned this earlier, but you also mentioned this earlier. Go out of your way to put yourself in front of recruiters. So you spoke about the Grace Hopper conference. Go to conferences like that, not just for the what's the word I'm looking for, not just for the sake of going for the career fairs, but go to actually network as well. So you meet people. A lot of jobs nowadays are filled through networking. So it's somebody who knows somebody who puts in a good word that gets you in the door for an interview. And in my opinion, the hardest part is getting the interview because once you know your worth and know what you can do, then I'm pretty sure you can sell it to whoever is interviewing you for them to hire you. But put yourself in front of recruiters. There are a bunch of conferences out there that have career fairs of people who literally just come there to hire, and a lot of them are basically tailored for people of color. So you're not going there trying to compete with basically with a bunch of other people. You understand what I mean? It's not like Iowa State where, no, not saying the Iowa State career fair is bad, but in that space, in that space, it's not just you competing, right? There may be a specific stigma that a recruiter has towards you, and because of that, you start talking, they basically hear an accent and they put you away. But in other career fairs that are maybe NESB, for example, or SWE, Society of Women and Hispanic Society of Hispanic Engineers, SWE, Society of Women's Engineering, SHIP, so Society of Hispanic Engineers. There are a bunch of other conferences as well. There's also Afrotech and a bunch of them. So finding a way to put yourself in front of a recruiter, whether it be LinkedIn or it be going to a conference, is definitely the way to go if you want to start. Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people sometimes just like view LinkedIn as like, I have to make 500 connections or I have to make 1,000 connections. And that's not what works. You can't view networking as transactional. You have to make meaningful connections, people that will actually go out of their way to recruit you or to, refer you because they actually think you're a good person and a good candidate and they want to work with you. So it's important like how you portray yourself too.
Yeah, I completely agree. Don't just click the connect button, right? Click connect, then put a little message there. Hey, this is me. This is why I'm connecting. It could be anything. There's a bunch of good templates for you to send to recruiters like that. A lot of recruiters may connect with you. A lot of them won't. Out of 100 you send to, say you want to work for company X, you send to 100 recruiters for company X. Only one of them may respond to you. But at the end of the day, all you need is one person to take a chance at you, to take a chance on you, and eventually, things will work out. So yeah, definitely networking. Let me ask you the next question. So, what do you think got you your current job?
I guess I talked about this a little earlier. My bad. But so, like you said, I looked for opportunities outside of just what was in front of me. So there was this conference called the Grace Hopper Conference. It's a conference that basically it supports women in tech since numbers are very low of women in tech. And it's super inspiring, super amazing. I would definitely recommend anyone to go, whether you identify as a female or not. It's very, very inspiring. And one of my friends forwarded me a scholarship for this conference. It's like pretty expensive to go otherwise. And I was like, oh, I don't even know what this is. What is Grace Hopper? I had no idea. I looked into it and I applied. And I, ended up going. And I went to this career fair and I was blown away. There was dream companies from all over the United States, companies that did not come to Iowa State, companies that I never dreamt of being in the same room with. And I just worked my butt off. And I talked to all of them. And I would say on the first day, it didn't go that well. I realized what I was doing wrong. And I learned from that. And like you said earlier, I asked people, hey, what did I do wrong? How can I get better? And you'd be surprised at how nice recruiters are and how nice they're they're willing to help you. And I think I learned from that first day on what they were looking for, and I corrected myself. And then I talked to more companies, and I would say it was just like, the personal projects, it was those leadership experiences, and I found a way to like figure out what they were looking for and how to sell myself in that way. You have to use your strengths and figure out what that company is looking for, and you need to figure out a way to sell yourself, to make yourself, marketable. Because at the end of the day, everyone in that room is probably as technically able as you, but it is how you sell yourself to that recruiter to get that initial interview.
I completely agree. I had a similar situation where I was focusing on the technical part, and during the interview for my current job, so they have several rounds of interviews, right? And the first round is the phone interview, or they come to campus and they interview you. And it was like a 15-30 minutes thing. And if you know technical interview, it's kind of hard, depending on if they ask you a question that you know or not, it can be kind of hard for you to solve a question in 15 minutes, right? And so the recruiter gave me this question, and I was like, all right, I did average. I wouldn't say I did best, because recruiters nowadays like to make up their own questions. So rather than cramming questions, you probably should learn how to solve the questions, learn the techniques behind it. And I didn't do the best, but in the last 5 minutes, she started asking me about what I did outside coding, and I talked about how I was a mentor to a freshman and how I was working on this app, and I brought him along with me to work on the app together. And I would give him tasks like, oh, I need help with this, I need help with that, and he would do it. And for the last 5 to 10 minutes of the interview, that was all we spoke about. And I feel like that was the part that caught her attention more, because, as you said, everyone kind of knows how to code, right? So the only way you can code is for you to do it more. And if you go to college, you spend you spend 4 years doing that, so you kind of have an idea of what to do. Now, the technical things you'll probably learn as you do them at work, but how do you distinguish yourself from other people when it comes to the technical side of things? And I think that's what got me mine. Just that idea that I like to help, right? So when I was in someone's shoes, I knew I would have wanted someone to pull me in and started showing me the ropes of software. So there's mobile apps, there's web applications. While I'm working on this mobile app, you can do this for me. This is basically point me in the directions, and I was doing that for someone. And that was what caught their eye. And I feel like that was what, I won't say that was what got me the job. Obviously, years of hard work and turmoil got me, but I think that was what helped me stand out among other people that they were interviewing.
I just realized that I completely answered that question wrong, and I didn't tell you how I got my current job at Amazon, but I told you how I got my internship.
Okay. You can talk about the current job at Amazon as well. That works.
Yeah. So I guess the internship helped to do that, because I think I had the skills that Amazon was looking for. And I guess I don't want to say I'm lucky, because you work for whatever you get, and it's not just luck. But my manager messaged me on LinkedIn, and he was like, hey, I'm hiring for my team, like, are you interested? In my head, I'm like, oh, is this a scam? Like, because you get so many messages on LinkedIn, and you don't know if it's real or not. But it was real, and I interviewed, and it was like, first round and then final round, and I ended up getting the job. So that is how I ended up working at Amazon. So that's why I'm a big advocate for LinkedIn, and you gotta get on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say LinkedIn. LinkedIn is definitely the way. People kind of sleep on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like Facebook and Instagram, but rather than seeing influencers, you're seeing recruiters and people who can potentially give you jobs, right? People who work at companies, and so don't sleep on LinkedIn. One thing I was gonna add was having recommendations on LinkedIn as well with people who you've worked with. You might have been a chef, or you worked at a grocery store as something. If your manager is on, if your manager who you worked with at that time is on LinkedIn, ask him for a recommendation. Put in 1 or 2 sentences. They go a long way when a recruiter is comparing your profile to another person's profile to give an interview or a job. So LinkedIn is definitely the way to go. Don't sleep on LinkedIn. Yeah. The next question is, how do you get over interview fears and phobia?
So this is a good question, because I used to have so much interview phobia. Because I think, like we talked about, like meeting people that explain, like, they've gone through these experiences and they share them with you. I would say I did meet people my first year, but I didn't meet as many until the end of my first year. So after my first internship, I had no idea what you needed to do to prepare for like more interviews, especially like FANG companies. I was not prepared. Leak code, hacker rank, I didn't know what these things were. I didn't know that you had to do them. I entered my interviews and I just kept failing them because like I wasn't prepared at all. And I failed so many interviews that I just got so scared for next year. And I think part of that is also like not being prepared, like lack of confidence, like unless you know all these topics inside out, you are going to be scared because you know there's something that they can ask you that you do not know and you will freeze. So I think it's very important to just really know the material really well and make sure that you just, someone asks you something and you just can say it right away.
I completely agree. For me, it was the idea of, as you said, I think I started getting interviews in quotes with the bigger companies. Like after my first internship, I had three after my first one, and so I filled a bunch of them. And after a while, it just became, oh, Microsoft wants to interview you, or Google is coming to campus, they want to interview you, or Facebook wants to interview you for an internship, and you just blew it. But after, I think when it was like my final year, I was like, okay, let me take this thing serious. And I actually, believe it or not, I actually read through the blueprint of how to prepare for these interviews. And that was when I realized, oh, it's like, it's not just vibes. It's not just go there and, you guys chop it up and, they ask you a few questions like, what is a class? What is an object? Yeah, what's a method? There's an actual means to the end, It's not just about you trying to explain what you learned in sophomore year and then them explaining it. It's them giving you an actual problem and you have to think through it. You have to use everything you've learned to apply. They're not asking you, well, some interview questions ask you what you learned, other ones, but most of them want you to apply what you've learned. And so learning both of them, I went back to the basics. What is a data structure? What is a stack? What is a tree? What is an array? I went back and learned all those things like the back of my hand. I could implement a hash map. Now, I didn't cram those things. I knew those things. So I studied them. And there's a specific level of confidence that you get when you know stuff. Now, it could be false confidence because you may not know, but with technical interview questions, after you've done a lot of them, you start to see a pattern. There's a pattern in them. Like one question is very similar to another question. They just used a different name. Maybe they used Jill instead of Bob or something. Like the patterns are very similar. And when you see one problem, oh, I've seen it before. And so the confidence of solving so many and understanding what's really happening in the background and knowing, okay, this is how to do this problem. And I know if you give me a problem, even if you made the problem, I know you're probably trying to test me on one of the many techniques that I've learned in the past. So that confidence of going in and knowing I've worked hard enough that if you ask me a problem, chances are that I've seen the problem. But if I haven't seen it, my past experience from all the problems I've solved would help me go through it. And I think that's basically what was the defining point for me in that confidence. As you said, a lot of people think to work in these companies, you have to be a genius, like a smartass, like a 4.0 GPA kind of thing. Wait, it's just regular people. It's just hard work. It's just trying to figure out what you're looking for. Because a lot of times when you're given projects, no one is, unless maybe it's like your first couple of months, they kind of walk you through, this is what I want you to do. But even that process, they don't walk you through how to do it, right? They expect you to use the best way possible to solve a problem, but they don't want to teach you that way. So the interview process is basically trying to harness your reasoning and your thinking and understanding that they don't just want to see you to solve the problem, they also want to see how to communicate as well. So saying every single thing you're thinking. There can be such a thing as over talking during an interview. Maybe you're saying something you're not supposed to say, but I still believe saying as much as you can towards the problem. That definitely helps as well because you're not solving the question, right? It's you and the interviewer going through the process of solving the question. So, yeah, that definitely helped.
I think something that helped me a lot was like doing mock interviews. Like we did a lot of mock interviews when I was interviewing. And it was really helpful because when you do interviews, they do not give you feedback at the end. They don't tell you what you did right. They don't tell you what you did wrong. So it's difficult to learn from that. But when you mock interview with your friends, they're gonna tell you. They're gonna tell you, hey, you shouldn't have done this. Oh, you can do this better. Or they'll say, good job, like you did that really well. And that kind of feedback is really helpful in helping you, one, gain confidence, and two, improve as well. So, other than coding skills, which we've talked a lot about, what are other skills that you think are needed to be a successful software engineer?
There are a decent amount of them. I'll talk on one and I'll let you cover the rest. But I know you're probably going to talk about this, but wow, your text of you're frozen just popped up on my screen. Okay. There are a bunch of other skills, but the main one for me, I think it's definitely communication, because there comes a time when you're working as a software engineer, and it's not just you working on a project. You're working on a group of people, and you definitely assign work to a bunch of people, right? And when, at the end of the day, you all have to come back and say, okay, this is my part. This is why I did something in a specific way. And communication is a big chunk of that. You're attending meetings all the time, whether you like it or not. Where I work, my days are kind of split into half. So 4 hours is required. It's kind of like 4 hours for meetings, and the other 4 hours for doing actual software development work, because you have to go talk to other teams, tell them, these are the deliverables. This is why I want them. This is the time I want them. Other teams come to you, and so a lot of what we do involves talking. A lot of what we do involves communicating with other people, and so if your communication skills of how you articulate, how you your people skills as well in that communication part, because everyone at the end of the day, everyone wants their voice to be heard, and everyone wants their opinion to matter. Everyone thinks their opinion is the best, so trying to navigate that as well. So people and communication skills is definitely important, and the only way you can gain those is by practicing. So as you mentioned, going to clubs, there's no better place for, I won't call it drama, but talk to a bunch of people who may not see things the way you do, than a board of a club. Maybe, if you're the leader, then you have to talk to a bunch of people, or if you're on the board, you attend meetings as you would when you're at your actual job, and you have a lot of back and forth to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like you might not work with people you like. You might disagree with them. You might, have something to say, something to call out, and you need to be able to say those things and say them effectively at the right time, or there will be negative consequences for your project or your team or whatever if you do not communicate. So I think that's really important. Other things I think are important too. So something I noticed that I think it's a skill that you probably also need to learn as well, which comes with practice, is being able to estimate, how long things can do. What are you able to do? What are your skills? And being able to say, no, I cannot do that in 1 week, or be able to say, I need 2 weeks to do that, is a really important skill. And it doesn't make you look bad to say that I can't do something. If anything, it actually makes you look good to know what your limitations are. So I think that's important. And something else I also thought was understanding other points of view. When you're in a company, the engineer's not the only player here, right? There's a business team, there's marketing, there's designers, and you're gonna have to work with all of them, and you need to understand what they need from you to be able to do their job, and they're also gonna need things from you as well to do their job. So you need to be able to work together and understand what you need from each other, which I guess also plays into communication and why it's really important.
Yeah, communication is definitely a big one. You said it's not just you. You have PMs, you have program managers who you have to tell you need something a specific way, and they have to go advocate for you. And if you don't have the proper skills, or if you don't know how to convey a message, it may seem like you don't know what you want. And in actuality, because of that miscommunication, it may take two more weeks for you to deliver on something, or an even longer time. So I definitely agree with you. But I think communication is definitely the biggest one. That's why during technical interviews, one of the biggest things they're grading you on is communication, right? Are you just sitting down there solving the question all by yourself without even telling the interviewer what's going on through your head, or are you walking them through every step of the way of how you even came up with the problem before you even wrote anything on the whiteboard? So there's definitely a big there's definitely a big chunk of that in the workforce as well. So developing that skill is definitely big. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like at the end of the day, people just want to work with people that they like, and you need to be likable. Like, if you're terrible to work with, no one's gonna want to work with you.
I agree completely. And whether you like it or not, it can be hard and might be speculative, but people can kind of tell from the way you answer specific questions in an interview, right? So if I ask you, oh, tell me about this thing or tell me about this thing, there's a bunch of star interview questions. So situation, task, action, result that they ask. And it's not just to see whether, honestly, it's to see how it's to kind of gauge your character. Because if you're in a situation like that, which you will be most likely at work, they want to see how good of a person you are. And if you're not likable, nobody wants to work with someone who's not likable and who is not personable, as you said. So I think that's definitely a big part. Big part of it. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. You just messed it up. Okay. You know what? I'm actually gonna leave most of this in anyway. We're having a conversation, not this thing. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think those are all the questions we have. Thank you for joining me, Kamini. Thank you for taking.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe in the future we could do something kind of similar, or we could work on a project together. Actually, I think that would be pretty fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for joining me.